Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're going to go ahead and get started with our virtual event for the evening. First, I'd like to just extend a warm welcome to everyone who is joining us today. Welcome to our first National Security Language Initiative for Youth virtual event for the 2016-2017 academic year. We're so excited for this event as not only is it the first virtual event of the year, but it's also the first Persian virtual event we've ever done. So thank you all for joining us for this special occasion. The title of this event, as you can see on this opening slide, is A Day in the Life in Tajikistan. We are excited to be here. Some students who participated in the NISLI Y program in Dushanbe, Tajikistan this past summer. These students are joining us from all over the U.S. We are also joined by NISLI alumni, friends and family members, educators, and students. So again, I'd like to say welcome everyone to this virtual event. Speaking of who all is joining us for this event, we'd like to take a quick poll on your affiliations with the NISLI program. So please choose the option on the screen that best describes your connection to the NISLI program. We'll give you all about a minute to complete this, and then we'll display the results for all of us to see. Excellent. This is great. It looks like we have a number of you who are prospective NISLI participants. So a warm welcome to all of you. We'll be talking a bit about the application for the 2017-2018 NISLI program. So we're very excited that you all can join us tonight. Okay, great. So just a brief overview. During today's event, our NISLI alumni speakers will present on different aspects from their summer programs in Tajikistan. We're looking forward to them sharing their valuable insights and observations about their host family life, Persian language learning, religion, and differences between American and Tajik culture. How this event will proceed is the NISLI Y students will each take turns giving their presentations. During the presentations, the chat box on the bottom right corner of your screen will be open for any comments or questions you may have. We encourage lots of dialogue, and if the students can't get to your questions during their presentation, we'll make note of the questions and they can address them at the end during the question and answer session. I believe that's all we have on our end. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to your presenters, beginning with Josephine.
Hi guys. Okay, so I will be talking about my host family, and then I'll be talking about some previous language experience that I have and how that relates to my learning in Tajikistan, as well as some of the basic class structure that we had during our program. So this is my host family tree. Obviously, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but this is just kind of to show how crazily confusing family can be in Tajikistan. So the first day I was there, it took me forever to figure out who was whose child and what was really the structure of my host family. So actually everyone from the left of the third person from the right was in my host house at one point in time. And my host family does not have a huge house. So it was a really crazy living situation. And I'm an only child. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm an only child here. So it was really crazy to see what it's like to have kids running around all the time and see how different that is from what I'm used to. Okay, so these are my host parents. So my host father's name is Samad. He is a cook at a restaurant in Dushanbe, which is the capital of Tajikistan. And then this is my host mother, Olia, and she is a teacher at one of the universities in Dushanbe, and she teaches other people how to become teachers. And then this is their grandson, my host brother. His name is Muslim. He is turning 2 sometime in the next month. And then here's just another picture of him. And then this is my host sister-in-law. Her name is Sayora. She is in her 30s. She works at a school in Dushanbe where a lot of ambassadors and diplomats send their children. And in this picture, she's cooking osh, which is the national dish in Tajikistan, and it's shown on the right here. So it's basically rice with some usually carrots and meat, and this one has some garlic in it as well. And then this is a picture of me with a few of my host siblings. So this is Junora. She's 6 years old. This is Paria. She's 5 years old. She actually lives in London most of the time, but she was visiting her grandparents, my host parents, while I was living in my host house as well. And then this is Muhammad Ali, who just goes by Mama John, John being like a term of endearment that you add to people's names in Persian. And like I said, it was crazy just to hang out with them every day when I got home from class, and they were 3 of the sweetest kids I've ever met. They were really, really lovely to live with and hang out with every day. Okay, so this is a large section of my family. So on the very left, there's my host brother. His name is Nabi, and he's a mechanic. And then next to him is my host mother again, Olia. In my lap, there's is my host brother, Muslim, and then on the right is my host sister, Nigora, and she lived in London with her daughter, Paria, and then her two sons, Anushavan and Bejan. They're from a previous husband because she was originally marriage, and they live in Dushanbe with their father. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about previous language experience and how it relates to my Tajiki learning. So I'm 15. I'm a sophomore in high school this year in Salt Lake City, Utah, and my mom is from China, so I speak Chinese fluently, and I was in an immersion program for Spanish, so I also speak Spanish fluently, and then at my high school, I'm learning French and Arabic. So this is just some background on the Tajiki alphabet. So a lot of people assume that Persian only uses the Perso-Arabic script, which is the script that the dialect of Persian Farsi uses, and I'm pretty sure Dari does as well. So Tajiki is a dialect of Persian that is spoken in Tajikistan, while Farsi is spoken mainly in Iran, and Dari is spoken mainly in Afghanistan. So next year I have the Tajiki alphabet in the top right hand corner, and that is actually based off of the Cyrillic alphabet, which is the alphabet that Russian uses and many other languages use. And Tajikistan uses the Cyrillic alphabet because it was at one point part of the Soviet Union. So that makes Tajiki a really great gateway language, I guess, because you speak Persian, so you could go into Farsi, you could go into Dari, but also because you're learning the Cyrillic alphabet, if you wanted to learn Russian or another language, the alphabet gives you a great chance because boost of knowing the alphabet. So these are just some interesting shared letter sounds in different languages. So Tajiki shares a lot of letter sounds with Arabic. So there's the gha, which is similar to the ghain in Arabic. There's the ka, which sounds like the Q in English and is similar to the kaf in Arabic. There's the kha, which is a hard H. Again, these are all sounds that we really don't have in English. And then there's the which is similar to the sound in uh-oh. It's kind of guttural sound. It's very hard to say correctly, so I won't make a fool of myself trying to say it perfectly. There's also the Spanish R, which is the soft R. So in America we say the R, but in Spanish and in Tajiki they say the R sound. German, there's the umlaut. So Tajiki they have the U, but a lot of Tajiks just pronounce that letter U. It just depends on where in Tajikistan you live. There's some differences. And then another letter that is shared is the J, which is used in Czech as well as in multiple other languages. I just chose Czech because my father's from the Czech Republic. So these are just some some similarities I found that really helped me with learning Tajiki, with learning pronunciation, the alphabet. It's a lot easier, I guess, for me to find similarities between different languages and then use those to pronounce words more correctly. So class structure in Tajikistan in our program. So we did a lot of reading and writing practice. We had 2 textbooks each that we brought over to Tajikistan, and then one of our teachers really liked stories, so she would print out stories for us and we would translate them, and the next day we'd come back to class and talk about what we'd read. We also did a lot of speaking practice with her. So we had 2 teachers while we were there. So we would speak with teachers, and then we would also work in groups or individually. And then we also did a lot of singing. So one of our teachers, she would print out song lyrics for us, and we would learn the songs. And by the end of the program, at the talent show at the end, I guess, we sang a lot of Tajik songs for the local Tajiks, which they really enjoyed. And then every Friday, so we had class from Monday to Friday, every Friday we would have a final exam on the unit that we had done that week. And then outside of class, there were also a lot of opportunities for practice. These included speaking with the host family. So when I got home from class, I would usually speak with my sister-in-law for a while. Also speaking with locals in the bazaar, on the street maybe, or just people that your host family introduces you to. Reading practice, for sure, that also ties in with the homework. We also had opportunities to go into bookstores and buy some books in Tajiki, which are a lot easier to find in Tajikistan, obviously, than they are in the U.S. There's virtually no access to Tajiki reading materials here in the U.S. Also, writing on your own. My host mom was a big fan of getting me to write like pages and pages for her so that she could read through them. And then flashcards, for sure. Our resident director, Jamie, she's a big fan of flashcards. Always having flashcards on you if you're just walking around the city and you want to practice your vocabulary, or if you learn new vocabulary words, that's also a great way to just incorporate that vocabulary into your learning. And then just some language strategies that I found helpful while I was there in Tajikistan. Incorporating new vocabulary for sure is really important. Just if you learn a new word, using it in conversation. Okay. Somebody's asked if it's hard for me to speak with my host family if anyone spoke English. So My host sister-in-law, she was an English teacher, but I usually didn't speak English with her unless it was like an emergency and it was really hard for me to understand what was going on. She would translate it to English for me, but I tried to stay mainly in Tajiki with my host family, and then nobody else in my family spoke English except for one of my other host sisters who lives in London most of the time. But I definitely think it's really important to not fall back on English. Like, you have to push yourself to learn the target language to use it in your daily life. So before we go to our host families, there's a 2-week period where we're living in a camp outside of Dushanbe, and that for sure helped with our host families. And then we lived our host families for a month after that. The day after I got to my host family's house, I got really sick, so it was kind of frustrating to have to figure out like how to tell somebody I was sick in Tajiki. But I think once you get into the groove of things after a couple of days, it's really not that hard to focus on the target language, to focus on using your vocabulary, focus on using correct grammar, and really just practicing and taking advantage of the resource that you have in your host family. And somebody else asked if I've used Tajiki at all since being back in the States. I have used Tajiki with our local coordinator. Yesterday I was with some Iranians and I spoke a little bit of Persian with them. I've Skyped a lot of the other alumni that went on the trip with me, and I've practiced Tajiki with them as well. There are a lot of Tajiks living in Salt Lake City, obviously, but I do make an effort to try to find other people that speak Persian. I've talked with my host sister. I've talked with my host family a couple of times. So making sure to just reach out to other people that speak Tajiki and keeping in touch with your host family for sure is a huge asset. And then spotting familiar words when you're walking through the town, like just seeing a sign and trying to read the sign definitely helps with reading a lot. And then just like looking at the sign, seeing if you recognize the words using context to try to figure out what some words mean. And then third, listening to local variations. So the dialect, I guess, of Tajiki that we learned is called Adabi, which means it's like the literature version of the language, meaning that it's the more literary form. So it's not the slang form. But it was really interesting for me to listen to my host siblings talking to each other. It can be a little frustrating at first. When I first got to my host family's house, I didn't really understand what was going on, just because there are, of course, differences between slang and the literature form of Tajiki, just like we have here in the U.S. in English. But it's really interesting to try to figure out like the differences between slang and literature. And I think that's one of the coolest things about just learning a new language, is trying to figure out like how people take the language and then, you know, shorten things. Like we have contractions in English. That's definitely a really interesting thing to pay attention to. Okay, that's on my presentation. Tasha Korizion, or thank you very much.